together look at some successful submissions. So let me get the table. And this table is a little bit different than what you'll be submitting, but it's almost the same thing. We'll look at the student used the same f-stop, f5.6. The shutter speed changes. Also note, without a tripod, it's going to be very hard, especially when you get to the low light and night situations. We can see our shutter is getting slower and slower, and you can't hand hold the camera for that amount of time. So when I look at her settings, here is ISO 100, 200, 800, and 1600. Then when we go into night, notice everything, we're doing equivalent exposures, so everything is well exposed, even though, she had to light it up because it's really dark. Everything looks exactly the same. But we know, I can tell from looking at the metadata, and I can see the metadata on the left side, that everything is correctly exposed. Let's look at another student example. So here, they're using all f9. It's not quite a full f-stop, but it's still pretty good. And we can see the shutter is going to change, and it's going to be for a long exposure, especially at night. So as we go through the frame, we can see a foreground, middle ground, and background. And let me zoom in a little bit more. And then when we go to night, everything looks exactly the same, but it has changed. And what has changed? The ISO and the shutter speed. Let's look at a third example. At first glance, we'll look at the table. We're all at f3.5. Do remember, you're going to use full f-stops, And 3.5 is not a full f-stop, FYI. So let's look at her photographs. She's at 3.5. And when I look at the metadata, I can see that the first one is at 100. The last one in the day is at 1600. Then we go to night. Notice, look at the colored shifts. We have a warm tone photograph, and then we go to the evening shot, and I can even tell from the metadata when I look at it, this is at 6:02 in the evening versus the earlier one, which was at 7:14 in the morning. So the color's temperature does change. So let's look at the evening photographs. They're all equivalent exposure. They're all well exposed. And that was successful. Here is another student example. I'm going to choose the oranges. You can see they were at f2.8. Their ISOs changed accordingly, and yours is going to be slightly different for an updated chart. And their shutter speeds are going to change. Look at how long these exposures are. These are long exposures that cannot be accomplished unless you use a tripod or put your camera on a table, preferably a tripod. Do remember there are tripods to check out at the library and cameras. So we look at the oranges. Everything looks really good. Then we go to evening, and we have a correctly exposed image for the lighting situation. Let's look at another one. Now, do remember the first image in the day is the same photograph, same composition in the evening. So let's look at one more and see if I can find the table here. Here, this one's a little bit different. They're confused. They put the aperture where the shutter speed should be at, so they're reversed. But we still see they used f11, which is not a full f-stop, by the way. And the shutter speed does change. But let's look at their photographs. So we're going to go from the morning to 11:57 in the morning, technically noon, all the way to 5:29 in the evening. All right, so let's take a look. Yeah, and you can see the color shift also. And let's see, we have, I believe, one more to look at. Here we're at f5, which is not a full f-stop, but you have to remember, use full f-stops when you're doing this assignment. We can see their ISO has changed, and we see their shutter speed. All right, let's take a look at her photographs. And the first one is at almost 11 a.m. in the morning, and the last one is at 5:19. So there was a lot more sun at that time. And as I'm going through, I can see everything except for this one is well exposed. The last one is a little overexposed. You can see that detail in the white is being lost. All right, so these are examples of what your photographs are going to look like. Thank you.